Today's guest is Marc Coloma, co-founder of Eura. 7 years ago, Marc and Bernard were called crazy dreamers for believing that they could change the food system. Today, Eura stands as the leading plant-based startup in Europe, with a community of rebels who are reshaping the way we think about food. From his early days as a passionate activist fighting for justice, Marc combined technology and culinary tradition to create solutions that empower people to enjoy what they love sustainably. This is Tomorrow's Bites. And now, dear impact makers, here's our conversation with Marc Coloma. So Marc, happy to have you finally on this podcast. It took some time, but nobody knows. We keep that for ourselves. But now we have you. I'm glad to have you. We know you, and I think a lot of our audience knows you as setting up one of the leading startups within the plant-based scene, alternative proteins. And this position, what you have now, it took you quite some time. But I can explain you your profile and everything, but I think it's fair that the guest does it by himself. So Marc, how would you describe yourself?
Well, a pleasure to be here and sharing more about me and the journey that we are on. And about describing myself, I'm someone very curious and that loves to take action for the things that fire me up, And I will say that I'm very in love with a problem. That is the impact that the food system has in our life and how the companies can be part of the solution of these problems, And this brings to what you were saying, a long journey of keeping reinventing yourself in order to be more useful to solve this challenge.
Yeah, and it actually didn't start as where you are now. You were before, if we go a bit into your background, you came from, let's say, an activism role, and then you combined justice and technology, and that was maybe now one of the drivers in your.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, injustice fired me up a lot, and it all started social activism very early on in social rights and environmental rights. Then I turned vegetarian and I started in the animal rights movement. But there was a driver for me that was very important, that is effective altruism, And with the effort that I was putting in, how to be more effective for what I care, about. And I realized that sometimes consciousness has a lot of limits in order to transform society. And at the end, many activists think that motivation is the most important part, but then you need also the behavior, And I realized that many people that was turning vegan or vegetarian was coming back to eating meat, and social pressure was the main thing, And at the end, it showed that there was a lack of material conditions in order to sustain a behavior, And I think that a great example is biking. You can promote a lot of biking in a city, but if there are no bikes or bike lanes, it's going to be difficult, And I realized that there, the role of technology was really relevant in order to facilitate people, to keep doing what they love, but extracting all the negative impact and having the positive one, And I think that there is a story that even inspired me. That is the Henry's story. Have you ever heard about it? And
no,
it's interesting that in 180s in New York, there was the first animal rights activist called Henry Berg that was fighting for the abolition of using horses as means of transportation. That back then was a huge sanitary issue as well in the cities with industrialization and more people living there, and a lot of horse poop created a lot of sanitary problems, a part of the problem for the horses. And contemporary to his time in Chicago, there was another Henry Ford, that without fighting or arguing with anyone, he just created a better solution, to the problem about how to transport yourself in the city, And this story inspired me a lot, about the use of technology or how it can allow us to go to the next step. And with this, all this concept of successor that we love in Eura, How to create solutions that directly make the problem obsolete and help us to keep doing what we love.
I am curious, you mentioned that already since a teenager, you were a person that was quite triggered by social injustice. When was the first time that you enrolled actively in some sort of activism? How would I say it? Activism event, activism act. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it was around 14 to 15 years old, no? At the end, I think that it's very linked to curiosity, not understanding certain realities, no? That we live in our planet and wanting to be part of the solution, no? Back then, when you are a teenager, I think that you do it from the place of showing, no? That you are against, and step by step, you are more and more part of how to be able to build, the solutions that the problem need.
No, definitely, you're a rebel by nature. No, we could say that. It's really like the Eura also idea in the marketing and in branding, but it's something that comes from your personal part as well, as I see.
Yeah. And at the end, we want to spark this rebel spirit, no? But more than sparking rebellion, at the end, it's how we go out from feeling like victims to the problems that we have, no? What we want to encourage is empowerment, no? And sometimes in front of situations that we don't like or affect us, we can act like making ourselves small or realizing that we have more power to change what we care about, no? So at the end, what we want to spark is non-conformism and this idea that anything that we admire in the world has been done by other humans that have acted, no? And what we can want to inspire is that it's action, it's a vote, and that we have more power than we think to build the realities that we dream of.
You know what is interesting is how you explain this now more clear. But in the start of Eura, and I've read some things about it, that you're the co-founder, Bernat, was not very into the idea of solving this with food, right? He was more on the activism, like do it on social media and showcase there. So how did the idea of Eura then started?
It was by being convinced that we needed better technologies. Both we had this background in activism, and we realized that we didn't have any doubt that this was the way forward, no? But what we understood is that we have to match the culinary traditions, no? From a sensory perspective, it shouldn't be a compromise, no? And this is what took us long to do, no? More than 2 years in order to develop a product, to build a supply chain that could bring a novelty, into the market that will attract many more people that wasn't attracted yet or before to plant products based on plant proteins.
Let's go to those initial days. Like you were sitting together. When did you decide to create one of these first applications, like in plant-based foods, and how did you came to it?
So at the end, it was in 2015. We had a clarity, about what we had to do, and it took us 2 years in order to set up everything, and we were able to launch into the market in 2017. But at the end, we got inspired by first pioneers in the United States working in this concept of plant-based meats. So we started reading a lot of papers about different technologies that could help to create fibers structures made from legumes, and from there we landed in the concept of high moisture extrusion. And from that, this was the first technology that we built the company on in order to launch products into the market, that had a very similar sensorial experience to chicken, and that the fibrousness, the juiciness was incredible, and it was even recipes that were marinated, so the convenience for the consumers was great. And since day one, they've got a really good feedback, and we were able to advance super fast into the market.
There is one thing about this decision to start that for sure I believe that is worth to ask is one thing is doing it in the US, which there's a really varied probably cuisine and gastronomy, but you decided to start this in Spain, which is precisely a country that is really attached to its culinary tradition. Not only in Spain, also in Catalonia. That also within Spain also has even a really special culinary tradition attached to meat. Even no, we talk about botfarra, or we talk about many other products within the territory. If didn't you receive like feedback, like pushing you back, like this is not the way when you started?
Well, it's interesting that Spain is one of the countries where there is the biggest meat consumption in Europe, but from our way of seeing things is where we see the biggest opportunity, no? Because at the end, we are not here to fight culinary traditions, but to reinvent them, no? And at the end, what we are trying to achieve is a celebration of now you can keep eating what you love every day because it's healthy for you, and everyone that you care because it will be able to be sustainably produced, no? And at the same time, taking into account the animals as a key stakeholder to consider. So at the end, we always try to talk about this successor approach, no? We are not here about to fight traditions, but to reinvent them and to evolve them, no? And I think that when we look at renewable energy or the electrification of transportation, people celebrate that. And we have not to go over this sometimes polarization that exists with food, no? Food is different. Food is much more romantic, integrated in our culture. And what we try is not to fight culture, but try to celebrate that right now you can enjoy the good things and get rid of the bad things.
And in that process at the beginning, when was the moment that you realized that you actually had a spot in the market? Because as I said, there was a 2015, nobody yet was talking so much about plant-based. Actually, the boom really comes in the 2018, 2019 when Beyond Meat and Impossible. And I was living in Barcelona back then, so I also knew about Eura because it was like, yeah, no, you for sure need to try this one. This one is much tastes much better, etc., etc. But in 2015, when was the moment that you said, okay, no, this will work. This will be a market?
I didn't know how big, but when we tried the first prototypes, we realized we are onto something, no? At the end, when you try tofu, when you try seitan, when you try tempeh or veggie burgers back then, textures that were so apart, no, of what we are familiar, and we were getting so much closer to what we are familiar, no? And that was a key element for us, no? How we are able to get to that familiarity from a sensory perspective, improving the nutritional and the environmental impact, no? And with that first vibe of the final prototype, I realized that this is going to be it. But back then I couldn't imagine that then, no, we will become one of the leading startups in this space in Europe and being able to even go further of plant-based meats in the future. And well, we will talk about it later, no? But it was difficult to imagine the magnitude, but for sure there was a huge aha moment when you give it to your grandmother and she likes it. I think that's something that didn't happen before with products based on plant proteins.
I like it. There's here something in of like, it's not only you liking the product, but it's also very good to validate what others think about it. And that is something, whenever that happens and you get a clear image of what, if there's actually a market for it, right? And that's what you do with this. Then I can imagine that you get the feeling of like, okay, this is where we should go. But then you have the product, right? So you have your prototype, your first one. Then you have to either think about, okay, what are the next steps? Like, how are we going to dive into our marketing? How do we create a full package around it? Like, because you come from an activism role, which is like really pushing forward, actually standing at the forefront of a lot of like changes in the world, right? A lot of people, they look different at activists because, they go for something that is for a lot of people, something completely new. So for you as well, you have a completely new product. Like, how do you think which market you should, like, which kind of persona you should target, and how should you do your marketing around that?
Cool. Great question. Well, At the end, we wanted to create something new that could appeal, no, to mass market as many people as possible, but understanding that at the beginning, you have to focus in who can you mobilize the most. That's your proposal can resonate better, no? So at the beginning, we were focusing a lot on people that were doing already dietary choices to eat healthier and more sustainable, no? The famous flexitarians and already veggie people, no? And we start to build a community and go to specialized channels in order to validate that, no? And work so good that we could expand from there. But also, we focus in simplifying, no? This new way of looking at food with this concept of successors, of celebrating what you already love and having a better solution for it and sharing the impact, no? The positive impact that you can have in your diet, no? Reducing the amount of saturated fat, not having cholesterol, bringing fiber in that meat doesn't have any, bringing phytonutrients, more vitamins, more minerals, and even having more protein, no? And making it super delicious and convenient. So at the end, the value proposition was clear, and we were simplifying it a lot, no? We were talking about another way to eat legumes, no? And that we are what pasta has been to wheat, we are to legumes, no? And we simplified things a lot back then when there was no as much awareness of plant-based meat. But at the end, it's focusing a lot on who can you mobilize the most, what you try to create a simplification of your worldview that can be interesting for the many, no? And in this way, we were having a lot of attention in media and restaurants were even putting without paying them or naming the menus. And at the same time, no, we were reaching people that was going to stores and we were getting a lot of traction since early beginnings.
I wanted to know also, like in the starts, how did you decide what to develop in products? It was just what was easy, or it was something that you said, yeah, this is what we need in the market?
At the end, feasibility is a really relevant element where you think that you can be building excellence, no? And in high moisture extrusion, we saw a great technology to create something that was very familiar to people because it was clean label, really great textures, and offer a lot of variety and convenience. And from there, understanding, no, which were the biggest segments of animal products that we could create successors. That is how we like to call our products, with excellence, no? So this feasibility element of with our current know-how, where can we develop great products, was the criteria, and also understanding where the bigger opportunity is, taking into account the size of the animal segments.
What was the first product of Eura, the first one that you launched to the market?
So we're like chicken chunks.
Chicken chunks, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know them because my girlfriend wanted to try that a lot, and we were studying in the Netherlands, and we couldn't get our hands on them yet. Now you can, but at that time not. So the first time when we came back to Spain, it was in our basket.
Nice.
Also, in those early days, I know that I read something about that you were considered crazy dreamers, basically, because of the whole innovative idea that you had together with your co-founder, Bernat. Sometimes don't you think about that moment back and then think like, well, now 7 years later, you can name yourself almost I think you can name yourself the leading European company in the plant-based sector?
Yes, a startup, we are one of the leading ones. But it's interesting that when you are in love with a problem that's so big, we have to take into account that the sales in value of the food industry is around 9 billion, but the externalities, all the sanitary costs, the social costs, and the environmental cost, it goes from 12 to 19 billion. depending in who analyze it, no? Depending if it's the UN or the FAO. So where I'm going with this is that this is a big challenge, no? And it's interesting that when you keep expanding how you can be more useful to solve the problem, you are also feel always in early days, no? So today, after so many years, I still feel in day one about many things because we are developing new ways, no, of being more effective to what we do, no? And well, so I normally don't romanticize a lot about all the past, but yeah, when you say it like this, it's a statistical anomaly what we have achieved. But at the same time, we are just in the early beginnings.
With the plant-based companies, I believe that in the end, also the product definitely is the thing that it's sold. What makes them unique is the technology that they use. No, that is actually the critical value of many of these companies. What is unique about the technology of Eura that Eura uses?
At the end, we have two challenges right now as a category. One, to create excellent products, but at the same time to raise considerations about the benefits of the product, no? And I will say that these are very, very important at this stage, no? And looking about the excellence of the product, it's interesting that Eura is having the higher repeat rates that has been published in the category, no? In certain products, more than 60% of people that are buying our products are coming back. I would say that this is one of the main challenges that the category had, no? That many people saw an opportunity and launched products that weren't aligned with what people expect when they eat food directly, no? So at the end, I would say that we have been able not to align really well with the health benefits that people want to see in a product when they look at the nutritional value and composition, but the taste, no? And going back to your question, how we achieve that. At the end, we have been able to build an amazing R&D team. Around 25% of the company is in R&D. We are around 100 people, so 25 of them. And we have been able to create new scientific knowledge about how to leverage better the potential of plant-based materials and ingredients and microorganisms in order to be able, no, that with the available ingredients and plant proteins, we are able to get to sensorial attributes that without requiring as much saturated fats or even additives, no, to get to functionalities. And at the end, we are developing different novel technologies and processing technologies that are based in how to design the concept of the microstructure of a product, no? And this is the core scientific approach that we are taking in our products. At the end, the microstructure is what you can sense with your mechanoreceptors, no, in your mouth. And it's interesting that sometimes we give a lot of relevance to novel ingredients, understanding that novel ingredients will help us to achieve new functionalities, but certain sensorial attributes can be designed, no, through the microstructure. And where we are mastering and focusing in doing is how to be able to design this microstructure through already available ingredients and especially to plant proteins to create, no, the networks that the product needs in order to achieve certain sensorial attributes, no? And this is what allows us to get to protein levels, to levels of saturated fat, no, and at the end, reduce calorie and a better health profile that makes our products unique with amazing taste, no? So at the end, I would say that we are creating novel technologies around this concept of mastering ingredient interactions through already available ingredients through new ways of processing plant ingredients.
So if I understand it correctly, maybe, I don't know, when the R&D team gets together and they say, for example, okay, we want to develop a chorizo plant-based. No, I know that you have a chorizo plant-based. In that sense, what you do is, okay, so now we are going to develop a technology that is focused on making the most excellent plant-based version of chorizo, or is a matter of using a core technology and adapted to this new product?
More or less. At the end, I will say, no, that what is linked to what I was sharing is that, for example, no, when someone wants to make a chorizo, someone will say, no, okay, the key sensorial attributes for people to like the product. No, it has to be crumbled. It has to have a firm bite. It has to be juicy. No? So how many people will solve this is, okay, if it has to be juicy, let's add a lot of saturated fat and fats in general in order to make sure that we can create this sensorial attribute in the product, no? The interesting thing is that we are trying to build in the intersection of high value nutrition, taste, and convenience, no? And through that, we are understanding that how, no, we can drive juiciness without requiring so much fat, and how we can then, no, process, for example, the emulsion of the proteins in order to get to something crumbled, firm bite, and juicy without relying just in the amount of fat that you need in your product. No, how we can create a network that doesn't require 5 hydrocolloids in order to create a cold cut. No, and we have been able to create cold cuts that, in order to structure the matrix, we are relying in just healthy lipids and protein isolate, no, that this doesn't exist into the market. No, how we are able to create a cheese that can be creamy and can have a cheese bite without needing any saturated starch or saturated fats in order to structure itself. Doing through even plant proteins like protein isolates and again healthy lipids in order to do that. No, so at the end we are asking ourselves these questions, and we are able, no, to design ingredient interactions that help us to go to certain kind of attributes that then, no, we can land this technology into different products. No, so at the end, what we have been exploring a lot is how we are able now to create certain matrix that then landed now into novel products and then novel technologies, no? With this approach of taking much more value already about the plant proteins and healthy lipids to be the main building blocks of the successor products, and improving sensory at the same time, not just the nutritional profile.
This sounds like there are endless opportunities, right?
Exactly.
But are there also no limitations for?
And there are always limitations, but our job is to push the boundaries. I think that it's interesting that, well, new product development, it's about, no, assembling what already exists, and it has a lot of limitations, no, and it has this ingredient functionality approach, no. Then why I think what we say is relevant is that the main narrative is, okay, all these limitations of current products are linked to the ingredients. No, we have to come up with new ingredients. But the reality is what we have to change is the way of designing products, no, and understand that what drives what we like in a product can be designed, no, and we can leverage much better already available ingredients in order to create a scalable supply chain, no, and be able to change today, right now, and revolutionize certain products that today could be much better, no? So at the end, in a nutshell, what we are doing is new technologies of product design by today in order to achieve all this, no? And it has certain limitations, but the reality is that there is a lot to explore there and a lot of scientific knowledge to be created. The difficulty of it is that it's not a monoscientific approach, no? You need experts in proteins, in emulsions, in colloids, in fluid dynamics, and in order to design these interactions, you have to take a lot of things into account in order to make it happen. This is why many people are not achieving it, but it requires complex science. But the great thing is that it can create simple techs that are effective and scalable.
I believe that there is a limitation in the plant-based talk in general. I don't know if it specifically applies to Eura, but I would like to hear your opinion. That is, when we talk about this excellence and this consumer acceptance, I don't know where the ambition goes. And as I say, I talk to a little bit in general now. But with this, I mean that right now you can try a lot of plant-based products that you say, yeah, they're good or they are nice. I would maybe replace it for another burger from the supermarket or for the chicken that I can buy in the supermarket. But that is not excellence, no? Like the supermarket level in a lot of things is not excellence. When we talk about excellence when it comes to meat products, sometimes we also talk about really homemade or really traditional core products. And I always wonder, is plant-based able to reach that same experience as you have with I don't know, a homemade cheese made in the most traditional way?
We will see about that. The thing is that we are in the infancy of an industry, no? How was the first iPhone compared to today, no? If they gave it to you today, you'd say, wow, this is shit, no? But back then was revolutionary. So at the end, I think that one of the main messages of what that I was sharing about is that there is a lot of scientific knowledge to be created in order to come up with a lot of solutions, you know? And I think that right now, when we look at about the problems of the food systems, are the products, no, that people are buying in the supermarkets. This is like plus 95% of the total food consumption, no? So being able to already creating successors there, it's being able to change the world. So at the end, I think that the focus has to be there, and then we will see, you know, how far we go product by product. But it's interesting that right now, for example, in our burger, with many hamburger owners, they are not able to differentiate it from one that's from cow, that from ours that's from pig, you know? And at the end, where we are saying that the limitation, it's not in overall liking. We already have sensorial test panels where our burger is better than the most consumed animal-based burger in Spain. So that's a huge milestones to be achieved. No, but I think that right now the biggest stop is one of Einstein's sentences that he said that it's easier to disintegrate an atom than a prejudice, no? And I think that right now people see, you know, plant-based burgers as burgers that are for vegans or a vegan burger, no? And they are not seeing them as a better burger, no? A burger that will help me with my health outcomes, reducing the amount of saturated fat, having less sodium, having fiber, having high amount of protein, iron, no? People are linking protein with animal meat. And at the end, what we are creating is like the super product, no? Because we don't have the problems, we have the benefits of plants. And then when you look at the environmental impact, we are reducing CO2 emissions by 94% in the case of the burger, no? And it will be the equivalent of, for example, saving more than 2 days in your house of electricity in an average house in Spain, no? So it's one of these things that you can do that can have the maximum impact as an individual for things that you care, no? So where I was going with that is I think this is the main challenge that right now the industry has to be able to communicate to the world, no? That what we are creating is better food and better products of the ones that you already love.
Yeah. And I see there as well a challenge of like you say you're tackling as well the ultra processed part, like becoming a healthier version within that, you know, and to really explain that to the average consumer will be probably pretty hard, because in the end it's also made by technology, and you use processes to create these beautiful microstructures that gives perfect texturized, perfect product textures. But before I dive into that, I still think that also our audience is coming within the food and egg, and one of the interesting things for them is also the technology itself. And I know it's like it's a pending patent technology, And you already gave stuff away, but is there more that you can explain us about, like how you're using the technology eventually to create these end products?
Well, at the end, I think that the most important thing is the scientific approach. And this scientific approach that we were talking about help us to be able to create the technologies. And that at the end, the technologies are processing technologies that are helping us to achieve outcomes that weren't possible until now. No, like creating, for example, plant-based cold cuts that are clean label with high amount of protein and low saturated fats, or cheese,
High protein pasta.
cheese-like textures. And at the end, what help us, is to keep doing this same essence in other categories. At the end, the mission of Eura is to be able to contribute to build a net positive food system and accelerate a protein transition. And another way of looking at this is what we were talking about of decreasing the externalities of the food industry. So at the end, when you are having this scientific approach and creating these technologies around being able to create final products and textures, just from plant proteins and healthy lipids as the main ingredients to build a structure, you start to ask your certain questions and rethink about how to accelerate it. And we realize that we will be able to keep improving our products that will be animal successors. But at the end, what we are changing is products that have high protein. We are changing the source in order to improve the outcome, in our health and the planet. But it's interesting that you can also reinvent other categories where there is a low amount of protein, and be able to create certain textures having this high protein, and at the same time being able to democratize this protein transition, because you make more available eating high protein. That it's something that many people are looking when they are eating meat. So if you can find it in more places, it will be another way to be able to reduce all the externalities linked to animal meat consumption. And from there is where it comes, this idea of making pasta through protein isolates, having the same bite, because when you now eat leaven-based pasta, bite and the sensorial attributes are very different. Also, the of notes are strong. So what we are proposing here is how we can do pasta, like the traditional one, but with more than 45% of protein content, for example. And with this, start to transform the so-called ultra-processed categories as well, Imagine sensorial attributes that people are getting with high amounts of sugar or high amounts of saturated fat in certain key categories, doing it also through plant proteins, So at the end, this is the way that we will keep using this scientific approach and building more technologies that, as you said, they are patent pending or we are about to patent, and that's why I can give more details right now. But at the end, this is the view, how we are able to reinvent many food categories, increasing a lot the nutritional value, but at the same time having amazing convenience and amazing taste, and bringing even indulgence with high value nutrition. That I think that there is a great opportunity there.
Eura is not a company that stands out only because of the technology. It's definitely, you have like quite a marketing and brand strategy and identity that has been really strong and really supported. I wanted to do two core questions about the brand identity. First of all, what does the Eura name mean? Eura in Catalan means ivy, but what does that relate then to the you do?
At the end, it's for us a metaphor, Ivies grow widely against, or in the structures that exist, and turn places green, So that was a great metaphor of what we wanted to do to the food system, and talk about our Mediterranean origins as well, and the part that it's intrinsic in our products, giving more relevance to the legumes, but do it with great culinary standards, So all this is part of the story of them, the name.
Then the second part, you talk about your community, and I think that this is something very interesting to talk about. Is that they are like the rebels, no? It's like you are good rebels with a cause, and I really believe that you have done a great job building the community, building a brand that people feels identified. I can tell that from my close circle of friends. That I have like people that is really crazy about Eura. So you do a great job there. And I wanted to know, how did you have the approach to this, to create this community?
Because at the end, what we want to build is a vehicle for change, not a company. And these are the consequences of thinking this way, no? So we were talking before, no? The way that we approach tech is thinking in a different way in order to reinvent food, no? And how we go to the limits of what we think is possible and keep pushing, no? And we will see where we come out. And so the same when we were talking about a brand, no? We do a lot of awareness and consciousness, no? With our brand. The main problem here is that people don't see the problem, no? At the end, as we were talking before, we relate with the food system, with food every day. All of us eat from 3 to 5 times per day, no? But we are so far away for the of the food system, and there we had a role to play, no? In order to share more, no? All these facts that most people doesn't know, and create a brand that what inspires is to be part of the solution of the things that you care, no? And this core message of non-conformism and acting for what you believe stick with many people. We didn't just start shouting in our own, no? We organized with many people that was here before us in order to build together, no? And understand that if we want to do something, no, that creates a footprint and creates a legacy, we have to do something with so many more people, no? And this is part of our way of doing things and saying things.
I really like this way of, you say that you really try to think outside the box in order for the technology, and also you do it for the marketing. I think it comes translated. For example, every time that there is a new commercial from Eura, it's always viral in LinkedIn. Like, I think that they are always quite original, and in the end, people would stick to them because it's not somebody talking about a product, no, but it's like most of the times is people not believing that they are not eating meat. I remember one with kids eating nuggets. They said like, were nuggets. Now recently you got the one of the burger with motor drivers, you know, like say, I can't believe this is not a real burger. How do you approach then like these marketing campaigns? How is the process of thinking outside the box and coming up with ideas in Eura?
At the end, here, well, it's me talking today, but there is an amazing team all across all the areas, no? All the areas of the company and in comms as well, no? At the end, we build from the perspective of, okay, which are the barriers, no? That we want to go over, and which are the benefits that are not clear that we have to push, no? And from there, it's landed in these concepts, no? Like realizing that many people are skeptical, no? About the category. It's interesting that we did a survey and we are realizing, and one of the outcomes was that 85% of Spaniards will eat more plant-based meat if they will know the benefits, no? And one of the things that stopped them is that they thought that they will be tasteless, no? So at the end, from this insight came this concept of, okay, who could be great skeptics? No, that right now will identify a lot with meat and will refuse plant-based meat. No, and it comes these motor bikers and do this stand with them. That was a great success.
So data-driven approach, is that right? Like you were looking first for the data together, which group you want to target to. Was it always the case? Like also with the beginning, it's like, okay, this is the community, this is the specific needs that we have to start with. So we first have to gather information from that specific needs of consumers?
Yeah, at the end, it's like a journey, no? That we have to keep doing. We have super clear mission and vision, and we have to understand where we are today, no? And how we act in order to create symbols, no, of what we want people to understand, no? And at the end, we always start, no, with data. What's the reality, no? That people understand and that we need to change. And from there, which symbols, which icons can we develop in order to send our message?
Okay, then I have one small thing, because actually lately a B2B startup came to me saying like, yeah, we also want to be more than only a B2B company. We want to create a brand, an image of like a movement forward, because we needed to change something. And I think Eura is like a similar company in that sense. Like you do B2B and B2C, because with the technology you show your B2B side. If there's any advice that you would give such a startup, what would it be?
Don't do that.
Don't do.
At the end, in order to do everything that we've done, we have to raise a lot of money, and in order to do that, no, in order to develop a huge R&D team and develop the tech and then develop the brand and all the value chain and all the route to market and go to market, you require a lot of resources, no? So if you can impact the world through tech, focus on that, no? Because it's the outcome that you can see, and then of course that every time that you have a chance to speak, you can share, no, what's your view on the world. But at the end, where I'm going with this is that we started doing products, no, to the market, so we needed to activate consumers and excite consumers to want to try these solutions, no. But if we started just doing tech that could enable others, our way of doing things will have done different, no? At the end,
Yeah, of course.
we've done also a journey, no, of starting with the product and doing new product development, and while maturing the company, no, and realizing the technical constraints that existed in improving our products, it is when we started to do science and tech. No?
Yeah, of course. Like I had to give you a bit more detail. Like for instance, imagine it's a company like right now a big problem is cocoa, right? High prices, still a lot of issues. We see a lot of companies creating chocolate alternatives, but that is also a neat technology and an end product, because in the end you showed it that you can create a nice chocolate with it. So in that sense, B2C, like showcasing also the branding should be considered, I think, as well, right?
Yes, what I think that it's important is autonomy, no? And sometimes when you are doing tech, at the end, what you will be enabling these other players that sometimes will be much more risk averse. So already being able, no, to prove in a certain market or certain channel, no, that the solution works, can risk a lot the possibility of scaling up, no, then the technology with other players, no. So I think that autonomy is relevant, but well, it's difficult always to do everything, and you will need more resources. And then to be excellent in more than one thing, it's not easy.
You were saying that it's been a difficult path, no? In the sense of maybe not difficult, challenging. I guess that's the better word, in the sense that you have to face a lot of challenges, and in this way or in this journey, you go overcome them, and some of them maybe you have not. During this journey, what is the most unexpected lessons you learned about the food industry?
Unexpected lessons will be the huge distance between scientific truth and people's perception. It's interesting that we think that when we want to consume more protein, for example, meat is the answer, not directly, when this is the worst solution that you can take, because we think of products as nutrients, but not the whole food, no? And the layers of negative impact that are part of it, no? People don't know that all vegetables have all the amino acids, no? But with different proportions, for example. And when we think about sustainability, we think that where we are buying it. So this idea of local is the most important thing, no? That it's also a huge data shows different, no? So it's interesting certain narratives, how much they drive consumer behavior, like ancestral, natural, and which are the scientific realities, no, that we have to take into consideration where we are thinking about optimizing our health, optimizing sustainability, and taking care of others, no? So this impacted me a lot, no? That I thought that the technology will be the solution, and that when you create a product, no, that beats everything, that's it, that's game over. And I realized that there are two things that go in parallel, no? How good your product is, but at the same time is how people consider what you offer.
I can understand that challenge part, what you have there, and also what you have learned then as an unexpected lesson from the industry. Yeah.
I would like to make a comment on something quickly. That is that you mentioned how people is so far away of the reality, and I believe that in this sense we can blame or put responsibility on sometimes media. I know that media sometimes can be harsh on what a lot of plant-based companies are trying to do. Have you ever had to face with any, I don't know, rough approach from media to your mission, or have you felt that media has put obstacles to you to grow?
At the end, we have to take into account, no, the status quo, no, the value of the animal meat. It's 1.4 trillion, no. So this is one of the biggest industries on the planet, and they have a strong influence, no, and also the behaviors and that we are having as a society in the last decades that are normalized, no. So at the end, the inertia that we are having is super strong, no, and inertia is super powerful. So this is as the main point, but also it's interesting that sometimes a lot of misinformation happen because the food industry doesn't communicate, and it's interesting that there are so many debates that are getting so blurry, and the role, no, of the food industry there bringing clarity to it and explaining things, it's non-existent, no? And I think that this is one of the challenges, no? That the ones that are talking are the ones that sometimes profit from selling you, I don't know which diet or supplements or whatever, no? And there is an opportunity, no, for companies and marketeers to learn about food technology, nutrition, and start to communicate about that, no? And I think that a great example there is the ultra processed concept, no? That it's a concept that lacks any scientific definition, no? And everyone has its own definition, no? And it started with well-intention of the defining junk food, no? That at the beginning was referring, no, to food that wouldn't have any protein, that will be high in sodium, in sugar, with no fiber, no? And it's interesting that plant-based meats are the opposite, no, of it. And even when there are studies that show that even sanitary professionals, more than 30% of them wouldn't be able to apply the NOVA classification, no? But we are losing sight that the important in a product is not if it's processed or not, but the outcomes, no, that is having in your health. And it's interesting that there are already many randomized control trials that when they show that plant-based meat helps you lower your total cholesterol, DL cholesterol, weight management, inflammation, and that are a great tool, no, to solve the biggest causes of death, that are cardiovascular disease. And in what you are saying, it's interesting when certain powers work together. There was a really fun study that studied ultra-processed food that they gave to a population, to a control group, 40% of their total calories coming from biscuits, confectionery, cakes, even distilled alcohol, like 1% of the total calories. And there was like a 0.2% coming from plant-based meat. So I think of this, no? And what's the interesting thing? Well, when you give all these kind of food products and food composition to people, their health biomarkers worsen. And which were the headlines that some media was taking out? Plant-based meat is ultra processed and it's worse for your cholesterol level. So, well, sometimes funny things happen in the world, but it's nothing new that didn't happen before with the tobacco industry or other industries, no? When something is dying and something is appearing, monsters also appear.
Oh, that's a nice one heading there. Yeah, no, I completely agree with the first part. That's one of the things I always say, like you have now very big influencers like personal brands that sell you diets, that sell you beliefs, that sell you supplements, all because they could grow because they had big questions that they couldn't find any answers towards because the food industry just didn't give them. So they will do their own research and eventually, like you dive yourself into all kind of confirmation and then you have confirmation bias, so you keep into the same circle. And that is one of the problems, right? I think one of the big problems is basically that the information is never given by the industry. It's like never explained what the health benefits or like what the ingredients really do with your body, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We also come closer to the ending. But before, I want to ask you one thing. What is one advice that you would give to your younger self that just started out with Eura?
Many. But at the end, it's to give sometimes a space to your intuition, no? That it's interesting that with experience, I think that you are sometimes able to articulate verbally better certain things that when you are younger are feelings, no? And sometimes you can doubt yourself thinking that you don't know and relying in other people's opinions that are very far away from your context, no? So, well, I think that it's important a lot to be humble, to listen a lot, but in certain points that when you see that certain things are the aligned, trust your instincts because everything will fall in the right place, maybe.
Really nice. It's really beautiful to think like that. Maybe something also we can learn from it. And well, Marc, we always normally do the same closing questions to all the guests. So we'll just go through this little tradition. The first one is we make a lot of questions and we don't stop making questions. So we always give you the guest a chance to make us a question to us.
So I will ask, what do you think that you are not doing that if you start doing, it will accelerate creating a better food system?
That's a good question. What we are not doing that if we start doing? I believe that we are working on that side. The podcast, we are trying to work on identifying. We believe that we bring value to the food system doing what we do. But of course, we believe that we can do more. And I think that our first way of bringing value is trying to condense all this knowledge that we are getting from all these great conversations and converting it into more accessible ways of people to overcome challenges that, for example, Marc, you already mentioned in this podcast. And the fact that you can make that interactive. And I realized this during an event recently. I believe that there's a lot of companies that are facing challenges that are already solved for many others. And that by only sharing those things that we already know, it will help incredibly to these companies that are trying to make an impact to reach that moment of making an impact.
Yeah. And to add on this, it comes back to what you also did. It's like you have to understand to what are the needs of your audience or your group that you want to target. So the first thing that we also know is Anna says, this is what we see, but we also want to gather more data of like, okay, what is really needed within the food and egg and where we can help and accelerate the change makers, basically.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So, well, No, thanks for asking. Now, going to the last question is we always save the easiest one for the last. Don't worry, Mark. What is your favorite food or dish?
Oof, this is asking like favorite music, eh? I think that depends a lot in the mood. But lately, something that I'm really enjoying, it looks like an advert, but it's a reality. It's amazing toast with like the Eura ham that are incredible and getting back to my childhood. Being able to, I do crazy toasts like with many ingredients, with sort of bread and great amazing texture. So lately I'm enjoying a lot and getting back to toasts.
Yeah, I know the idea can sound like advertising and everything, but there is nothing healthier than an entrepreneur or the owner of a company that one of the things that most enjoys is one of their products. So I think that is actually also a really good sign in some way.
And compared to animal ham, there is nothing healthier than our ham as well.
Well, Marc, thanks a lot for coming to the podcast. It's been tough. We have faced a lot of difficulties technically, time-wise, etc. But here we are. We have made a great conversation out of it. As I said at the beginning, before starting, a lot of challenge comes with a great result. In the end, I really enjoyed it. I think it's been really fruitful. I personally have great experience trying to dive deeper into a brand that I value a lot, and understanding better how do you work, I think is great. I believe that a lot of people will find this conversation super interesting and also inspirational, and I can only say thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And we are people that love solutions to problems, and overcoming all the technical difficulties is a proof of that. So, well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to share more about what we are doing, and well, the best luck to you, guys.
Thanks a lot, Mark.